Hello, everybody. How's your PAX been so far? Pretty good, I guess. They seem fine. Congratulations. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to let these wonderful guests introduce themselves, who are much more interesting than me. So, James, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'm James. I'm the game director on Fort Solis, and a writer, I guess, as well.
Hello, everyone. Everyone having a great weekend? Yeah! Thank you so much for coming. My name's Roger Clark. I'm lucky enough to play Jack Leary in Fort Solis.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Julia Brown, and I play Jessica Appleton in Fort Solis.
I'm Alana. I am not in Fort Solis, devastatingly, but I'm here to moderate today. Very happy to be here. Thank you again for joining us. And unfortunately, we could not be joined by someone you may have heard of, Troy Baker. I don't know if anyone here has heard of him.
Never heard of him.
He did send us a lovely message.
Oh.
Hi, PAX. I'm not going to lie to you. This is about my 10th time to do this video because I wanted to be with you guys to celebrate. I wanted to be with my castmates, Roger and Julia. I wanted to be with my teammates, James, and everybody at Fallen Leaf. But at least in some way, I can celebrate with you. So here I am in this little rectangle talking at you, which is weird. But I'm excited. Maybe that's why I get this way. I'm so excited about our game. And it all started with a conversation with James a long time ago, when he first told me what kind of story and what kind of experience he was hoping to create for you, the player. And he immediately got me. And then I read the script. And I got to see what this story would look like on the page. And then he told me I get to work opposite of Roger Clark. I got to work with Arthur Morgan. And I wish I was with you guys right now, because whenever you compliment Roger, he has these like Irish blushy cheeks, and it's so cute. But he is a consummate actor. He's an actor's actor. In every scene, he and I would just get on the stage and just attack the scene. Sometimes attack each other. That's a different thing. And we would always come out with the best version of the scene possible. And then you have Julie, who comes in, who's never done this before. And she has to work with us chuckleheads. And she just takes to it like fish to water. She's truly, truly remarkable. So I know I have a great cast. We have a great story. But I'm like you. I'm a little skeptical. I want to see, do we have a great game? And then I got to see it. And I got to see what the experience was really going to look like as you're moving through the world and spending time with these characters. That's when I got really excited. So I'm excited for you guys to see it. I'm excited for you guys to discuss it at PAX and to hear what your response is. But most importantly, I'm excited for you guys to go hands-on with it this summer on PlayStation 5 and PC. So until then, man, I really should have thought of a better sign-off. Go give Roger a big hug for me.
James, so nice of you to give an up-and-comer nobody a part in the game.
I know, we gave him some screen time and a few lines.
I'm sure he'll have a career ahead of him.
There was a few times he was a little overwhelmed, but, you know, we'd give him a hug and some Kleenex and he would be fine.
It's very nice of you. So before we get into the thesis of the panel today, which is all about performance capture and acting in video games, James, for anyone who doesn't know, what exactly is this game?
Okay, I've practiced the pitch 100 times. Fort Solis is a third-person narrative thriller set on Mars that takes place over one long dark night, featuring Roger's character, Jack Leary, and the events that unravel. He's accompanied by his colleague, Jessica Appleton, in the game, which Julia plays. And events conspire to a very dark and tense ending, I would say, without spoiling anything, but that's pretty much the game.
So to the two actors, how did you feel about, trying to grasp something that's supposed to be very tense? Because that's how I've even seen Troy talk about this game, is it's sort of a thriller is the vibe. What does that inform when it comes to your performance in the game? How are you scaring us?
Well, it's like, I remember when I was told in drama school, if you're trying to play drunk, play sober. If you're trying to play an old guy, try and play like you're not old. And if you're in a scared situation that's extremely tense, You try to just make it out like it's no big deal. And that's, I think, what we tried to pull off at the beginning of Fort Solis. There comes a point in the game where it's just no denying how terrifying it is. But up until that point, I think Jack and Jessica do a great job of grounding each other in what is a pretty terrifying situation, because you don't know what's going to happen. And it's quiet. I mean, just not without giving too much away, obviously. We're answering a distress call, and you, as the player, are completely in the unknown just as much as Jack and Jessica. So I guess the answer to your question is I try not to be scared. And that's where I go until I eventually fail at that. And then we can all be changing our underwear together.
Yeah, I think we were so lucky to have such kind of long cinematic scenes that we shot together, and you were able to sort of really immerse yourself in the world. And for me, it was a bit different. I'm used to working in film and television, so coming to act in the volume was a lot more similar to theatre work. And I think I was just so fortunate to work alongside two greats, and the tense, nervous, scared scenes, like we could really be in it with one another because we were able to just continue through the whole sort of action. And yeah, without saying too much, there's a few pretty action-filled scenes towards the end, and because we were able to be so physical as actors, that really helped us.
Sounds exhausting.
It was.
I don't envy you at all. You kind of touched on it here. I know that this game is similar to God of War. I don't know if you've heard of it. No-cut camera, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Everything's filmed in one shot. So from the minute you arrive in the game to the minute at the end, it's just one shot, one take, which does sometimes cause issues when you position the camera and stuff like that in terms of how you transition between scenes. So it's quite a technical challenge, as I'm sure you know from God of War. But we were inspired by God of War, and we thought the immersion level was just another way to really keep the player immersed in the moment, but also to keep the intensity and the vibe, continuing. And even when we transition through chapters, we still keep the shot, we don't transition away. So we felt like it'd be the best way to present the game. And that's why we ended up in third person and not first, because we wanted to keep the shot.
Yeah, I felt like that going back to Ragnarok. I felt like when it's just one shot, you identify with Kratos a lot more, or with whoever you're playing. And it really felt like that too in Fort Solis. Acting in a video game is a little different from TV for many, many reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is when you sit down and watch a movie or a TV show and you see the main character, it takes a while to warm up to them, if you even do at that. But when you're playing a video game, you are that person. So a lot of our work is done for us. You as the audience identify with the character pretty quickly because you are the character and you're responsible for their movements and their decisions and whatnot. So then that frees up us as a performer to concentrate on other aspects of the performance too.
Okay, I'm just going to apologize again for name-dropping God of War so many times. I promise I'm not marketing God of War to you right now. It just keeps happening. So Roger, I know you're a God of War fan. Playing God of War 2018 and then jumping into a game that has that similar, like, no cuts, were there challenges regarding that kind of performance that you were or weren't expecting?
It wasn't so hard for me. I know it was harder for these guys because there comes a lot of technical problems, doesn't there, James?
Yeah, it does. It causes a lot of technical challenges. What problems?
Challenges. See,
that's
why he's the director, yeah.
That we have to solve, because a simple example would be if you know the camera's coming into the doorway on the left side, and then Roger would come into the volume, let's say, and starts predominantly looking at the right, and then the scene's taken away from the camera. We can't cut to the side of the room, so we have to account for the camera, which we would normally do with like our phones or something, on the set, just to see where it would go. And then it's okay, well, what kind of shot is it? Is it a medium shot? Is it a tracking shot? Because that variance can matter when you've got a one-shot camera. So we have to cleverly choreograph the fights, thank you. We have to fight and all the stunts and everything to have the camera in mind and think, is this the best way to present this moment, and how personal do we want this moment to feel, because that affects camera. And yeah, it creates a lot of challenges, because when you're on a set and the actors are asking, oh, can we do it like this? Can we do it like this? You're like, actually, no, not really, because the camera's coming through here and you need to be in shot here. It's not just a case of, oh, we can put the camera over there now. So we had to take a lot into consideration before the shoot. But fortunately in games it's a little bit more malleable because we can actually play with the camera a little bit when we get it back in post. But I think for the most part of the shoot it was having to be really clear about what we wanted from the camera before we did the scene.
And one thing you do be conscious of is that you know that the camera is probably going to be over your right shoulder. So, you know, that will influence certain expressions, certain physicalities that you want to incorporate into the character.
Is there anything like that was way different to previous games that you've worked on regarding the camera?
You know, every time I go back into the volume for a new game, I'm just blown away by the technological advancements that we keep seeing in performance capture. And this was no different. You know, we were able to get stuff done in a couple of days that would have taken weeks on other projects that I had done in the past. And I'm such a nerd, I don't know half of what it is. But what I am aware of is all the freedoms that it affords us as the performer. You know, with each new development, it seems like our job becomes more and more interesting and takes less and less time to get the achievements that we're trying to get. So that was really cool.
Didn't you work on Red Dead for like 4 years?
5.
That's a long time.
Half a decade. People who had gotten married, children were born. I remember, oh, well, I mean, people would come in after 2 or 3 years and say, oh yeah, I did a scene on a video game with you once. Yeah, it's the same game. It's actually the same scene too.
The minute that you mentioned trying to act not drunk, my head went, Lenny! Just immediately thinking about that. So Julia, I know that this is your first time working on a video game, correct? Yeah. How does it differ from all the other kinds of acting that you've done, or what are some things that you wouldn't have expected going into video game performance?
Oh, wow, a lot. I think just touching upon what we were saying about the camera being anywhere, it was my first day in the volume and James sort of said to me, you know, we can capture this from anywhere we want. And I was a bit like, oh, wow. So sometimes in film and TV, I can choose to be a little bit lazy. If we've done 25 takes of the same scene, and then we switch around and the camera's on someone else, you don't necessarily need to cry or be as stressed, or you can have a bit of a rest. Obviously still give your fellow actor something to go off, but it was just that feeling of having to always be on and perform whilst in the volume. But I think the adrenaline of that meant that we even got stronger takes. And I think something very weird for me to get used to was having a camera right in front of my face for my facial data, all the lovely dots they would draw on me, wearing ping pong balls all over my body, and being like, I don't have a costume, I don't have a set. It was so different to my day-to-day. So you had to create that all in your work, in your mind, and then especially for motion capture, we would do like a physical or a fight sequence. And sometimes that would be without the camera because the camera would be getting bounced around and we didn't want to break the equipment. So then we would shoot everything with our bodies and then we would stand still and shoot everything with our face. So I would be pulling all sorts of faces, but going over the physical scene in my head and matching it with all of that going on. So yeah, it was just a real test of the imagination in all sorts of senses of the word. But we had lots of cool aids because we're up on space. We had these like
space suits.
We had like polystyrene blocks that we
to
stuck on our
accommodate for
side.
the larger. Yeah.
So we felt like we were walking like that. We had boots on to try and remind us that we would have that sort of heavy feeling of our feet. And we also had a neck brace on to kind of match. Well, you can't see it anywhere here, but we have these space suits that are high up, and that was to remind us to stand in a certain way. So all of that was super helpful from the guys at Centroid.
I guess there must be a challenge in not being able to physically wear a costume. Like I imagine when you're getting into a character, that's the thing you really identify with, like how you feel for your performance, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's where the animators are invaluable. Yeah. Because, you know, we do have a costume. It's the same costume every day. But the digital costume is where the animators come in, and they make our jobs possible because they're up there with the director and the writers, in my opinion, as far as doing vocab is concerned, because they'll bring you over to a computer monitor and they'll go, okay, you see that? I know it looks like all pipes and scaffolding. Well, that is actually that. And then that informs you as an actor so much, because now you actually have some reference. And you can look, and you look for little details. What can I incorporate about that image into this performance? What little things, how cold is it, how warm is it, what time of day? All of these questions are answered by animators.
Yeah. How closely are you working with people like concept artists and animators, like from day to day to inform what
Side by side. Yeah, right, James? I mean, we couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, I mean, they're very variable, but yeah, they help visually inform earlier for the sets, because you don't always fully build them, because the advantage of mocap is like you can actually just do a grey box volume and then flesh out the scene later, but you
only
still need
need
the scale.
what we interact with, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, but we still need the scene, we still need the visual presentation as well, because it's important the actors understand where they are, why the scene's taking place, and these things you can convey through additional materials like animations, concept. So we worked really closely with our concept, and we concept everything up from start to finish, really, even something as simple as a bottle. Like, we would have our guys look at that and see how it works, because everything has to be done for a space age. How does this look 50 years from now, 100 years from now? It can't just be a plastic bottle, because they're probably not using plastic then. So all these things our concept artists would look at and try and find answers for, clever answers. And we took big, I think, inspiration from things like The Expanse, and the more reality-grounded way than perhaps like the Iron Man holograms. You know, we knew early we wanted it to be very, you know, robust, very rustic-looking. You should feel like the base is old, and it doesn't work, and that's kind of the charm, really. So we won't look at all that from the beginning, and when we got to the shoot, we I think had I don't know, a huge amount of materials, really, I think that could help set the game up for the scenes, because we knew it was important the performance had to land that way.
I had so many questions.
Yeah, we had our brilliant friend Matt, who was always there, because I kind of walked in like, what is all this stuff? Because there was like metal pipes and bits of polystyrene and everything, and he just had his laptop, would open it, and he'd say, okay, this is this type of door, you open it like this, you do this, and then really quickly I got the hang of it and was like, but it is, as Roger says, it's just up to those guys being there to show us this is your world.
Yeah, and a lot of imagination. It honestly sounds mentally exhausting, if I'm being honest.
Oh, I love it.
Lot. Good to hear. We keep using the word the volume. Just in case anybody doesn't know what that is, would one of you explain what exactly the volume is?
The volume, like, well, to me, it's the stage. Yeah. If you step outside of it, your balls don't work anymore. The sensors.
Phrasing.
Yeah. The sensors can't pick you up once you're outside of it. But when you're inside of it, anything is possible. Your imagination is literally the limit. That's where you perform.
Yes, we were surrounded by all the sensors, but then we also had the luxury of having a TV screen where we could see our avatars walking around.
In
which
real
was
time.
so fun. The first day I walked in and was like, oh, wow, cool, this is how it works. But then if you walked outside the volume, you could be glitching and your hand would start going like that.
That was fun too.
So, yeah, it was super cool.
Speaking of how you look, I believe we do have something we can show people. James, would you like to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, roll the trailer.
Hope you like it, guys. Check it out.
I need to make contact with SOLIS.
Don't even risk the LTV in the storm.
Jack Leary responding to Fort SOLIS alarm. Is everything okay over there?
Be careful. I think something is off here.
Jess, how many people are in SOLIS?
The system lists 6.
There's an incident here.
An incident? What kind of incident?
I don't know.
Well, what the hell is going on there?
Someone was down there with me. I'm heading back up to the surface level now.
You need to get out of there now!
I'm still in there!
Jack! Answer me!
Looks pretty good, huh?
Wishlist on Steam. And pre-order on PS5.
That's it. That's the panel done. That's what we're here for. Pre-order, everybody. So I can't help but notice that you do some running. What is that like when you're wearing a spandex ball suit?
it's a challenge, you know. But it was a lot of fun. What was fun, we were going up lots of stairs too, as I recall, and I remember this man was very concerned for my safety a few of the times, because I would go for it.
Yeah.
And they thought I was going to fall off, and then they'd have to get someone else. But I was able to stop myself just in time. Yeah, there's a lot of running. There's a lot of everything. It was such a joy to work on this game and to be able to do. You know, I'm so passionate about performance capture because, you know, so many games nowadays we say voice acting, you know, but that's because it was true for decades. But so much of the AAA titles now incorporates performance capture just as much, if not more. And I think it's a fantastic way to tell stories, and we're seeing it more and more now, and especially with cinema, and with Avatar, for example. And to be able to incorporate that into gaming is something that I've been a fan of ever since I was a kid, when I remember playing bowling on the Atari, where you could literally see the pixels. And to be able to be part of something like this now, I have to pinch myself. I'm black and blue up and down the arms.
You personally changed my perspective on that. I kept calling people voice actors, and then I think you tweeted and said, we don't call them voice actors in Avatar. I was like, you're right. That's actually just one tiny facet of what goes into making video games these days.
And voice acting's going nowhere by any means.
Sure.
I mean, in many ways, I love voice acting too. I don't actually think I'm a very good one, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I haven't done it. I haven't done as much of it as people think. But you know, when you're in the booth by yourself, in many ways it's even harder, because you've only got, well, two tools to prepare a character. You've got your life experience and your voice. But when you're out in the volume, it's much different. You can incorporate a lot more of your drama school training. It's a lot more theatrical, like we've been saying. You know, you now have an extra tool to be able to communicate a character to your audience. In many ways, I find that easier. When I look at some of the amazing work that a lot of voice actors have done in gaming before me, I'm blown away by them, thinking, my gosh, they did that more than likely by themselves. Sometimes you're working with your colleagues, but a lot of the time you're not, especially during COVID. You know, nobody was. So I think they're both amazing mediums, and the way that we're combining the two to tell stories like Fort Solis is, I think, very, very exciting.
It's going to be my next question. Did you do performance capture and voice acting, and how do you how is it decided which things are done in voice acting and which are done in performance capture, where it comes to voice lines?
It's a really good question, and no two studios do it the same way. This was, I guess, kind of 50-50 for me.
Yeah, obviously we only get so much time with the volume, and you have to plan out the scenes. They have to plan, you know, weeks in advance. So we try and look at the schedule and think, okay, well, which scenes we know absolutely need to be acted, and which lines of dialogue we can get after, you know, in a voice session. Because when it's facial data and it's going to be heavily in the scene, it has to be done in the volume. So we have to take time, like Julia said, for that. Whereas if it's just simply a game line, which is difference between games and film is because in games, if Jack stands around for an hour, you don't move. He has to probably say, maybe I should go inside. You know, you need those little help lines, those prompt lines, which I'm sure you know, Alana, because I know you write down.
You write a few of those.
Exactly. So that exists in game that doesn't exist in film. So we can get those later. You know, like pass Roger, you know, 100 lines and say, I need to go to the maintenance unit. You know, there's things that you might need that you don't necessarily will use, but it's something we have to account for. So none of that really is done in the motion capture sessions. Motion capture is all really for the cinematics, of course, the walk, the locomotion, which is something people don't really associate as well. It's Roger and Julia's walks are authentic in the game. We have to mocap all of that. We use a system called motion matching, which I'm not sure is relatively new. So we do dance cards. So they walk in set patterns on the floor, and I do like, I think 7 or 9 of those. And then that
A lot more than that.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, we just keep going around in circles, and then that really allows the locomotion system to build, you know, a huge amount of animations just based off that. So that was little unique things we have to account for when we come to planning the time, right? Locomotion, cinematics, you know, stunts. I'm going to say that because the agents are always like, they don't do stunts. I'm like, they're not doing stunts. They'll turn around and watch them.
We did stunts. Me and Troy did a few stunts. Yeah, definitely. But in fact, there's a Troy, no lie, there's a Troy-shaped hole in the studio, as I recall. Remember, Julia?
It's a Troy-shaped bum hole because his arse went into the wall when we were.
And that wasn't even. We were just practicing for
You
that.
got a lot of money if you sell that. That's all I'm saying.
Well, Troy signed it.
He
Yeah, he
signed it.
It's still there.
It's
Big hole in the wall with Troy Baker's signature next to it.
He said it says Troy Baker's arse was here.
I just remember coming out in the hallway.
Should
and I
auction
was
that
like-
off. Any takers? Anyone? Troy's butt.
I literally came out of the hallway. I was like, "What was that noise?" And I looked at the wall and I looked at the owner of Central Road Film, and he was like, "Don't worry about it." I was like, so I thought I was about to pay for a
Frame
wall.
it.
We worked with some great stunt coordinators
And
on that
Nathaniel.
job. They were really awesome. And one of the things I really appreciate whenever you start working with any stunt guy or girl is you say, Nathan said to us, look, your safety is paramount to me. And for that to be the first thing out of their mouth, that makes me feel safe, made Troy feel safe. So then we had the freedom to just go at it. And go at it we did.
Yeah, Lucky 13 were incredible for us. Like they really brought the scenes alive as well with their choreography. Like they go away and practice a scene and come back and go, what you think of this? And you're like, it's amazing. But you can't say that. You have to sort of try and give feedback and go, oh, maybe clean this up. Even though it's like, that's amazing.
What's the process for that? For the way your studio approaches it, are your stunts like written by the writing team, or is that something that really comes during choreography? Like, how detailed is that ahead of time?
Yeah, so we kind of left it a bit iterative because we knew we would get to the volume, but we wanted to explore the intensity of it and how the dialogue at the time could inform the scene, if that makes sense, rather than attempt to prescribe it before we arrived. And then we arrive on set, obviously. The actors are briefed with their lines, but then we speak with Lucky 13 about, okay, well, this is what we want the end result of the scene to be. And we speak a lot about, acting, about, conflict or desperate moments, adding to the story, not being there just for the sake of it, right? As we need another QT here, so have them fight, So we really wanted to drive the story. So everything that happens in those scenes are quite violent, but like it will leave a lasting mark on the character, or it will leave an irreversible incident. Something will happen emotionally that can't be taken back. And those scenes, I think, had to be planned out and choreographed. And also there's a comfort level with actors, right? Like, what are they comfortable doing? How much can we get done in the time as well? You can have the best fight scene, but if it takes you 4 days just to do one, it's just not going to work. So we really have to be mindful of what we can do in a short space of time with the actors and their comfort level.
And we did really good, right?
It's come out well.
We put a lot more in than I thought we were going to get.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love is how Martin and Nathaniel, right?
Yeah, Nathan.
The way they incorporated the environment too. Like, we can all talk about PCAP and how, oh my gosh, they move just like a human, and the way that they just basically, what we used to call it, keep alive, just standing still but not still. But when you see them interact with the environment, when you see them smashing heads against walls, props, and things that are actually in the game, that to me was very exciting. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think I watched the guys at first being like, I'm going to do that. But they would choreograph it like a dance. They would perform it for us. And then I would switch in, whoever we were doing physical, we won't do any spoilers, but just physical action with. And you pick it up so quickly. Cause,
How long's that process?
oh, I mean, we learned it in about 20
Couple of
minutes,
days.
I think. Well, no, but like the actual learning of the couple of days.
We did the fight
Julia's
scenes
just
in a
much
couple of
better.
days.
20 minutes for me. No, they sort of showed it to us. We learned it, did it a few times, get it in your body, and then just went for it. Yeah.
And one of the advantages of performance capture too is that you can make it a lot safer than what it actually will look like in game. You can put padding everywhere so that you can really go to town, which me and Troy did. Really slammed him into a few things.
That's how we got his butt. But am I correct in thinking that, based on what you said, that there was a staircase built in the volume?
Yeah, so that was this is one of the mundane types of mocap you do, because we have to get Roger running up a stairs, right, which has to be mocap. So you have to build it because it has to be, at least to some extent, loopable. So it has to be long enough to be looped. So we built some more stairs and a platform, and Roger was sprinting up these stairs. And I remember watching it buckle, and it was secure, obviously. But Roger, was a lot of muscle. So when he was on the top, it's a bit shaky, and I was like, looking at it, and it was like, okay, I was like, we need to put more mats down just in case he falls. And then Roger was dripping because he had the suit on and everything, and he'd done about 10 takes. And you're like, do you want me to do it again? I'm like, well, yeah, but I was like, we need to stop doing this because it's going to fall apart. And then it's like, those are the little things you have to do where it's like, you need to do a lot of those little things. You know, the fights are cool, but all those are the little moments make up the cinematics as well. So there's a lot of props built, a lot of stages built, a lot of, you know, the secret of mocap is it's usually just poles and boards, right? And
With chicken wire, too, because you want, the sensors need to be able to see through as much as possible, too.
So yeah, it's you have to plan all those builds ahead of schedule, right? So Centroid would have to know, okay, well, what are we building today? What's needed for the scene? There's a list of builds, and then they change them in and out whilst we get ready for the next scene. And it is like a well-oiled machine when it goes. But I think a successful shoot is really down to like the amount of prep and planning you do beforehand. And if everyone's informed and everyone knows, they can just work. It feels like you could just work, you know, and not have interruptions.
The set builders did an awesome job, yeah. And you typically, you know, your biggest build, you want to start with that one in the day, and then you can break that down once you got it, and then concentrate on some of the smaller stuff.
So how many people do you actually have working on the volume on any given day? Like how many people, like I imagine it's not even an easy task to swap people in and out to move the sets around.
There's probably like 20, was there?
Yeah, I was going to say the Centroid staff is probably around 10. We had some For the Leaf staff there. We had the actors. We had camera operators as well. I would say about 20 people.
Yeah.
And Troy had about 10 PAs, right?
Someone's got to get him his coffee. We just keep dunking on him when he's not here.
Because he's not here. It's
Sorry,
easy.
Troy.
Yeah, it was so interesting, all the different people you kind of meet, especially for me, it being like on my first day, there's someone there to look after your gloves and change your batteries in your gloves so that your fingers work, and then there's somebody there to stick all your ping pong balls on, and then you go next door and you do your little warm-ups that they've got to capture. You come into the space, you all T-pose, and it's all the different processes that you go through, and there's lots of people at different stages to look after you as you go through the day.
I guess related to that, what was your favorite thing about the whole performance capture experience?
Ooh, I think the physicality of it, and obviously just learning from these two and hearing about their experience. But for me, it was matching all the different parts up. I just love how you can perform in many different ways, and then it all gets sort of pieced together into beautiful tapestry, and all the work that goes on behind the scenes. Like, as Roger says, how long you work on these games and the finished product. But performance capture, I think a highlight for me was kind of getting in the voiceover booth and having to match the work that we'd done. So for some of the physical sequences, I think I was showing you earlier on a video I'd taken of myself going like, well, whilst I'm watching back the fight scene of us in the volume and trying to match what I was doing on the day. And I realized how much of it I'd kind of kept in my body. And I think that was a reminder to me of how it's such a physical performance that really like sticks with you.
It's like doing ADR on film, right?
Yeah. Exactly. You karaoke to yourself. It's great.
It's a beautiful way of putting it based on the way this game sounds. I imagine it's not going to be quite that pretty.
It's not that shiny.
So what is the process of I know you do the PCAP first, and then you'd come and you'd do the voice acting?
It depends. Typically, I like it that way, because then when you're in the booth, it's not hard to remember what you did on the day, you know, and then when you look at the reference video, you're like, oh, yeah, now I remember, yeah.
Still must be very strange to just watch yourself back. I'm imagining sort of a previs, like, I don't know what it looks like, but I can't imagine that's an easy process.
The footage is weird, isn't it? Because it's basically a camera this close to your face.
Right.
And you're like watching your face like this, and you have to do the sounds, the emotions, and then you've got your lines you're reading as well, because it's weird thinking you're not acting at that point, you're just there to do the ADR, because you've already done acting, and you're just complementing it. But I imagine it's no different to film or TV. I think the only difference with games is we'll probably always come back for pickup lines. There's always coming back, and that's the luxury we have. But we can't pick up face data lines. You know, what the character says, what they do on the day in the volume, what we capture with the face data, that has to stay, because we can't mimic the actual expressions of an actor's face. But again, that's something that's unique to the intensity of the performance, I think, as well, which is why it's so good to have performance capture in games nowadays and the technology that affords us to do that. Like having, you know, we had a great scene where Troy and Roger were working together in the scene, and then afterwards Troy was dripping in sweat. He turned around and it was like, do you want to do it again? do you want to do it again? I was like, yeah. He goes, I can get more violent. I can get more violent. And it was like, because he was so into it. And I was like, just watched him beat the hell out of Roger. And he was like, you know, choice, like he was into it. And then afterwards he was like, I could do it again, you know, I could do it again. And it was just like, that's that kind of thing that affords that kind of environment, right? You can do multiple takes and not have to worry too much about your face in those moments, but then you can come back to the face later and then complement the performance even more, you know, on the second way around.
It's not an impressive lens. It's a fisheye lens. It makes you look horrible.
And the worst bit is we can all see it throughout the day. Your face is on a TV and you walk around. But the funny thing is if you spin your head round and round, your face stays completely still and everything behind you spinning. But you do have to remember to tell them to turn you off when you go to the toilet.
Yeah, there's been a few accidents.
It's always a fun.
Roger's camera's not off.
Just squinting.
Just turn the monitor off like that. Turn it off. Roger.
What?
So I know you both have different backgrounds where it comes to acting in general, and this is such a hard question to ask, I know, because I've asked you this question before, Roger. How does performance capture, video game acting in general differ from other mediums most distinctly, do you think?
Well, I started out in theater, and I'm grateful that I did, because I think theater is the best place to learn how to become a good actor, because the audience is right there. You know, they either laugh or they don't laugh, they either clap or they don't clap. You learn in real time what works and what doesn't work. And then you can then take that and transfer it to all the other mediums. And, you know, personally, for me, if I had started somewhere else, I don't know if I would have the same sensibilities. But PCAP is more theatrical, in my opinion, than I think any other medium, even more than film sometimes, because of what we were talking about earlier, how the camera could literally be anywhere. And wherever you perform a scene, and James or whatever director will tell you it's probably going to be there, they could change their mind in post.
Which we do.
Yeah, which happens a lot. And you got to be aware of that in the back of your head, too. So you don't want to come up with a real intimate, tiny, unless you know for certain that it's going to be a close-up. You don't want to be doing real subtle stuff. At the same time, you don't need to be so big theatrically so that the person in the back row in a theater of this size can still hear you. So it's a nice cross in between the two. And it's just, you know, application and experience helps you get the hang of it. And, you know, Troy was so complimentary too, but watching him work, I was one of the things I was most excited about on this project was being able to finally see what, you know, how does Troy apply himself in the volume, and that was a pleasure too to watch. The guy, he is something else. He is top shelf. There's a reason why he's in everything, and it was a real joy to watch him.
I'm sure he'll take off any day. Real career ahead of him, that kid. I can't not make the joke. He's in everything. Julia, how about you? What did you feel like applied the most?
I think the luxury of performance capture is just being able to play. Like, you can really play and use your imagination in a way that you just can't do in sort of any other... Yeah, because even in theatre, like, you've only got one go. At least in the volume, we could try it a few different ways, and James was such an open director at letting us do that. We even improv'd a few things, which was great. It was like just having fun every day. But then I think also for me, switching from mainly television, somebody asked us earlier, is it strange, does it feel very artificial? But actually, because you can just connect with your other actor, and for me that was a real difference to a lot of the time in television. I'm staring at the side of a camera pretending it's a person because they need the camera to be on that person's shoulder and everything. So I was able to be fully connected to the other actor and immerse yourself in the world. It almost felt more real than a set in some sort of ways. Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head there. You can bounce off of each other, you know, and sometimes that's not possible. Especially wasn't possible during COVID when we were all in our little booths, you know, and sometimes your colleague has recorded beforehand so that you can play off of them. Yeah. Sometimes they haven't, and you're reading with the assistant director or whoever, you know, fetches the water. And neither, I mean, they're both great situations to be in, but it can't beat looking your colleague in the eyes and preparing the scene together. That is really invaluable. And well, you know, the other great thing too is the digital makeup that mocap affords you. I've been a bear in one scene, and then 5 minutes later, I'm a zombie. You know, and that's actually, I remember that happening. And the funniest thing you ever want to see is if you ever want to see a bear T-pose, I fully recommend going into performance capture, because they're being a bear, and then the next thing they're just standing up.
Yeah, the luxury is just being able to be absolutely anything, and it was so great that we could all three of us work together in the space every day. That, you know, I didn't experience that of, you know, not being able to work with the other actors, but also knowing that the animators are going to do so much after we finish. So it wasn't like film or TV for me where you have to turn on the tears every day, because they can paint some teardrops in, or they can pick a bit of data and they can stick it with that bit of data and make the perfect combination. You don't have to have a single perfect take in that regard, which was super cool and sort of took the pressure off for me as my first game.
Yeah, we couldn't do it without them. It would be absolutely impossible. It takes a village. It really does.
Yeah.
So how collaborative was the process for all of you? Like, James, I know sometimes in film and TV, they're very against actors ad-libbing or changing things, but video games are shot over a long period of time. I think you'd have a tough time if you weren't letting your actors also inform your characters. So how collaborative was your approach for Fort Solis?
Well, this is the first game I've directed, so I was always going in with the mindset that I would want to, you know, I'm always of the mindset that if you hire these people, then you should work with them, right, rather than just speak at them, I guess. But we wanted to be very open about how we had the script, we liked where it was going, but we also thought the actors would bring something to the dialogue themselves. You know, there was times when Troy would be like, okay, well, maybe I could put some more medical stuff in. You were like, can I say it like this? You know, and I really think that's important because it helps the actor embody the character a bit more, and also to empower them to play the character. You know, they're there to act, so let them act, and don't perhaps be too hold on to an idea you had, you know, in a room ages ago that doesn't actually look that good on the volume. You think, actually, no, we should change this. You know, because you could just say, no, this is the scene. This is what we're doing. You're like, yeah, but it could be better if you just let people help you, you know? So I was really keen to let everybody feel a part of the game, feel a part of the process, and we're very open to collaborating in every element, I think, from the acting to the physicality to the dialogue, without having to have a set guideline in terms of, no, it has to be this line, it has to say this. We even notice things, right? I'm sure you've had this before, where I wrote a line of dialogue, and then you read it back and think, that sounds awful, like that's terrible. So then you're on the set going, okay, well, how can we say this? Because we need it on facial data, and we haven't got a line. So like, okay, I'll go away and come back and say this. And then actually one of the things that happened with us was, due to the performances, I actually edited some dialogue because that wasn't the way the role was being played, you know, and we wanted the dialogue to be more authentic and match the performances of the actors. So I was actually, you know what? Roger's been here for a few days now. I've seen this. In this scene, he wouldn't say that. You know, that wouldn't be what he would do now with this performance. So let's tweak the line, let's change it, because you're always trying to reflect the performance and make sure that the quality of the acting is being seen and not smothered by bad dialogue or dialogue you've written because you're proud of it, so they have to say it. So we always wanted to be super open from the start, and hopefully we were hopefully.
It was really appreciated. But what's also appreciated was that James had a very clear vision too. You know, he is a perfect balance of the two, I think, because whenever we didn't know what was going on, James did, and he would fill us in.
Troy loves an ad-lib. Yeah, most of the scenes I was like, ooh, what's that? Okay, let's roll with this, which was great though, because James, we said, okay, let's do one scripted one, and then let's do one where Troy, you lead it, do your thing, and then it was really helpful to work with somebody who's so open to play and improvise like that, and be open to. You were always open to our suggestions, and it did feel like a very collaborative project. And also we had such a nice time when we did the motion capture shoot. We all kind of were staying in a hotel together in Uxbridge for a week, and we'd go out for dinners, and drink after work, and it was great fun.
Yeah, well, it was a really good week, and like you have to remember, as a director, it's very difficult. My first project to watch a scene that's amazing, and then they look at you and go, "Cut," like because everyone's waiting for you to say "cut," and you're like, "Oh yeah, shit, cut," and they're like, "Do you want to do another take?" You're like, "Yeah, but we can't do it again." And you have to feel like you have to give feedback. So okay, let's try it this way this time, or let's try it like with this angle. You know, let's try it just a bit different, see how it looks back when we get back on screen. So you have to remember to do all that, even though it's just incredible to watch them work, because you're like, "That was awesome," you know, like you're just like, "That was awesome."
It's always a good sign. What was the casting process like? Obviously, you're very happy with your actors, but I imagine it wasn't an immediate road to get there or to cast.
No, actually, we had quite a smooth casting process, because we knew when we set out, we had an idea of certain actors for the roles, so we thought, well, because it was just after COVID, we were like, we'll reach out through the union, like SAG. We had to go through SAG. Julia was a bit different because you don't live in America yet. But we reached out through SAG, and we just contacted Troy directly, Roger directly, through their agents, and we knew we would cast them if they were interested in the project, because we felt they really fit the role. We felt. More importantly, we're trying to go for actors with experience in mocap and performance capture as well, because we knew we had quite intense violent scenes, and that's not easy to do. Julia was slightly different. We looked into Julia because when we were going to the volume, Julia was available, and when she did the performance throughout the week, we were like, it's a no-brainer to cast Julia. She's fantastic. But we were quite rushed for time with Julia, so we had to basically send you the script a couple of days before. And we were like, here you go.
Just anyone, you take it.
No, but we had a few calls, and it felt like a really good match, because we needed somebody to play Jess's role in combination with the two we knew who we'd cast already. So at least when I try to cast, I try and cast to see how they would work together, rather than just cast them absent. Oh, we can get such and such, okay, fine, but that doesn't really suit the other actor, that kind of blend together, if that makes sense. Then, of course, when we cast Roger, Troy was like, oh, I know Roger. And then Roger's like, I know Troy. I was like, it's a small world, isn't it?
Roger, what was it like for you when you got cast? If you got approached, how did you feel about it initially?
I thought, oh my gosh, this is a chance not to be Arthur. This is going to be brilliant. No disrespect to Arthur. I mean, he is a part of me, but as an actor, I've always struggled, or always strived. Better word, strived. I've strived to keep my pigeonhole as large as possible. So the chance to do something in space was just too good to turn down, and working with Julia is. What you said just now, James, it really brought to mind how invaluable Jessica is in Fort Solis. Because what we were talking about earlier about how terrifying it is, Jessica grounds Jack in so many ways. If she wasn't there, I think he would probably have had a nervous breakdown. He would have just collapsed. But the fact that their dialogue, as you are exploring this abandoned, somewhat. Is it abandoned? I don't know. Maybe it's abandoned. You'll have to find out. But this place is spooky. None of the lights are on. Nobody's home. You don't know what's going on. And if it wasn't for Jessica keeping Jack calm, I think it would be a very different game.
No pressure. Seems very chill. Again, Julia, I'm so curious about your input on a lot of this. How was your first few days, learning this whole new process again with these actors who've done it before? Was it really easy for you to get into? Was it super foreign at first? What did it feel like to begin with?
Yeah, I'd done a little bit of motion capture before, so I kind of knew that. But this was the first day, going in, getting given a head camera, somebody drawing on my face. I was like, what's going on? But I'd actually YouTubed across the week, what does it look like? But it's so funny, all the information, behind the scenes tend to be for big sort of Hollywood movies and stuff, and there wasn't too much on performance capturing games.
Oh, those NDAs are strict, yeah.
Games industry's tough, yeah.
But I think it was honestly just having Troy and Roger there to pull me through the whole thing, and the locomotion day was interesting for me, just it being literally little routes mapped out in cones and doing spirals and going back on yourself and stop-start. But yeah, I think it was just having the amazing team I did around me that sort of pulled me through those first few days. I didn't really have time to think because we were straight into the action of it all. And I've since been able to do my second game, which is great. I'm so excited to be on this journey. You know, it's a whole new way of acting, but I'm absolutely loving it.
That's awesome. I'm very glad to hear it. When you talk about the locomotive days, when you're walking but you're on a space station and we know you're wearing these suits, are you just walking as yourself, or do you have to think really hard about trying to embody that context?
You got to think about it hard enough so that you can forget about it. Yeah.
You okay?
You got to think about it hard enough so that you can forget about it. Whenever I approach a new character, one of my questions is, where's his center of gravity? You know, how does this guy walk? And for this particular project, I had to really think about the suit and how that would change the way he moves. So I had a lot of questions about the design of that, which were dutifully answered perfectly, and so that was a big part of it. But one of the things that blew my mind away was how much data we were able to get from the locomotive stuff that would have, like I said earlier, would have taken days and days and days 10 years ago. And we got it done in like half a day. Right.
Yeah, we prioritized 2 locomotion days at the start to warm the actors up so they get to know each other and do some locomotion, stuff like that, before getting into the action of the game. But yeah, it saved a lot of time doing the dance cards. I don't know if everyone does that, but we did for motion matching, and I imagine people will use it going forward because it saves you so much time.
So many games nowadays, too, might use a different actor for the in-game locomotion stuff. And personally, I feel that can take out the immersiveness, you know, because you can tell if it's a different person or not. But if it's the same character throughout, and if it moves the same way, I think that really helps you get sucked into the game more.
Oh, massively. And it's so interesting watching the trailer. I'm like, oh, that's Roger's walk. Like, it's such a distinctive walk that he came up with for the character of Jack. And getting to watch you do that before I did it really helped, because I was like, had to think about, okay, how does Jessica walk? How does she feel? And it's not something I really consider in my other acting work. You just be the character, but obviously in locomotion you have to really think about the way you move, because that's all the players, you know, going to see on screen as they move through, and they need to feel that character off the way that your body moves. So it was really helpful that we did that first, and that sort of immersed us into the worlds of the characters. And all the funny things you have to consider about, okay, what if the player puts the controller down? Like, what's the character going to do? Or what are we going to see of the characters? Are they going to cough or wrinkle their eyebrows?
What if they're walking out in the storm? What if they're inside?
Yeah, we had to imagine the dust storm and how that feels on your body, and obviously you have nothing around you to help you feel that, so could test the imagination.
There are a lot of struggles with actually like getting your acting performance down when you're having to visualize and think about all of these things. It just seems like a lot happening in your brain at once.
You just focus on one bit at a time, and then you add on to it. It's just like learning lines, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes you do feel a little bit like you've come out of your body, because you're like, how do my feet feel? How does my sides feel? And you're like, you begin feeling a bit like a robot. And it is, like Roger says, you have to think about it all and then forget about it all. And once you've gone through the process, it sticks with you and you become the character.
Yeah, ideally you want it to become a physical memory so that you're thinking about something else.
Are you practicing your walk and stuff at home before you're on the volume? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am, yeah.
We're in the living room, going in spirals, walking backwards.
Yeah, my wife thinks it's almost as ridiculous as when I play video games and call it research. Which it is research. Oh, thank you.
Everybody's on your side there, nice. It's research, tell your parents. Be fine. We've obviously spoken about a lot of the struggles of getting these kind of performances down. What are your favorite things about it? What was your favorite thing about working on Fort Solis? What was the highlight?
The drinking. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. For me, it was being immersed in a whole new world with an awesome team, from the people at the motion capture studio at Centroid to all the guys at Fallen Leaf, and to these 2 amazing actors I got to work with. And it's just super cool to think about all the people that are working on it behind the scenes as well. our new publishers, Dear Villagers, and just coming to a cool thing like this, meeting all you guys. It's, yeah, the people have been the best part for me.
Everyone in this industry is uber talented. And when you're lucky enough to work in it, and I love to work, I almost never say no. When you're lucky enough to work in it and you see the talent and the intelligence and you see that there's not one weak link in the whole chain, you really feel privileged. And it is privileged. That's one of the things about it. And then also to be witness to what I consider really is this flourishing new medium that it's still in its early days, you know? I mean, yeah, we're all gamers and most of us have been for a very long time, but you know, our parents and our grandparents, still don't know a lot about this world. And I want to bring stories to them and to show them what we're capable of.
James, how about you? What was your highlight of getting to work with your actors?
The highlight was working with the actors, to be honest, just to see because when you write something, when you write a scene, you think, oh, I think that sounds good. And then when you see it acted and live, and you watch it back, and you think, oh, you know, bloody hell. It's very humbling as well to think, oh, you know, we did that, you know, as a group. Because it's not just me writing the scene or the actors. It's like Roger Jr. said, there's probably about 30 people involved in that scene, you know, to bring it to life. And everyone in our industry is as passionate about it. When you're creating, it's a very passionate thing. And I think the best thing for me really is having such an incredible team below me for the Leaf and the people who work tirelessly, like as I'm sure you know, on so much content in the studio, and it's their hard work and passion that makes those scenes pop. You know,
But Reddit told me game devs are lazy.
I can assure you I've taken years off my life doing this. Like, people were asking me about the second one, and I'm like, I don't even know if I'm doing that yet. Like, I want my old AAA job back. I want my desk job back. It's fine. But no, the team work incredibly hard because they're passionate, right? I have to remind some of our team members sometimes, you need to go home, you take a holidays, you know, because they're so passionate and they care so much and they want it to be perfect, right? And I think that's something that you see on the dev side, that the public is never public facing, but it's such a special thing, I think, in our industry, because I was at GDC this week, and any dev you meet is the same, right, about their game, on their team, and they're just, you know, they would do anything for the game, you know, to make it the best they can, because they care, right? And that's such a unique thing to the game studios, I think, if you all the development teams, because it's sort of like your own family, and you're in it together, and it's like you're responsible for bringing this to market, but no one else can help you really. So it's you and your team, and I feel so proud and privileged to have such amazing people at our studio. And that, I think, is my favorite thing. Those people are willing to put time into this project, like the actors, like our team. I wake up every morning thinking, you know, I feel so proud to represent them.
I still have this weird complex at the studio that I work at where I feel like I should be paying them. Like, I get to do this job? What do you mean? Like, it's just such a wealth of knowledge, and you're right, it's so many people who are so talented at what they do, all contributing to one thing, and you can talk to somebody in any facet of this, including the conversation we're having here today, where you guys are doing all this stuff that sounds so complicated and difficult to me, and you just do it. Like, it's nuts, the amount of hard work and synergy and all of that's required to actually make a video game come together, and no part of it is easy.
And it's the thing about working with talented people is if you ask them a question, you say, how does this work? They go, I'll show you. And they'll
100%.
And 20 minutes later, you're like going down this rabbit hole. You're like, this is incredible. Let's keep going. And they're just so happy to share and work with the team, you know. So I think that's such a unique thing to the game industry that people don't see, you know. And there are a lot of developers, and certainly probably watching this, will feel that way as well. So I feel very proud to represent the team.
Yeah, it's just all the different avenues, because then I would have a look at code and be like, what on earth is that? So it's amazing that we can all learn from one another and collaborate together.
Well, what a wonderful sentiment for the end of this panel, everybody. Fort Solis, when is it coming out? When can people get their hands on it?
We have a release window of summer 23, so it'll be this year. And yeah, very exciting. After it's out, I will sleep, but Dear Villagers will be doing more material around the actual release date this summer soon, so stay tuned, and we will be announcing our date very shortly.
Very exciting. And to our two actors, where can people find you if they want to follow you on social media? What are you up to?
I'm more active on Instagram than Twitter. It's @JuliaBrown. And you can see me in a few different television series and films, and another game coming soon, but I can't say anything on that. But yeah, for SOLIS this summer, check out on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm real excited about this game. I hope you all enjoy it. You can find me on Instagram at RollingRaj or rclark98 on Twitter. I announced everything coming up on that. I've got a few things in the pipeline. I can't talk about most of it, but I can talk about For SOLIS, and I hope you all enjoy it.
Thank you all for joining us, and have a great PAX.
Thank you.